It's not hard to argue that the Chimera Ant arc of Hunter x Hunter is one of the finest examples of peak shonen storytelling. The meticulous build-up and development of dozens of characters eventually culminates in 25 episodes of pure climax. Every character's personal story and motivation plays a part in the grander narrative, and it all weaves together into this beautiful chaos. It's during this arc that we are introduced to a character that would go on to become one of the most compelling antagonists in all of Hunter x Hunter. The light that illuminates light, the Chimera Ant King, Meruem. Or, as his loyal subjects like to call him,
My lord.
Now, when I first saw Meruem, I was like, who is this Universe 6 cell looking ass? And then he started bitch slapping people's heads off with his tail, and I was like, okay, he's kinda cool.
What about that?
What? The ant?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kinda cool.
But in all seriousness, Meruem is pretty bland in terms of personality. For most of his early screen time, he's just the fucking strong. From birth, Meruem was biologically pre-programmed to conquer, and with the help of his loyal subjects as well as his own brute strength, Meruem quickly places himself in a position of power and begins his plan to subjugate all of humanity in order to become the unchallenged ruler of the world. It's not so much that Meruem has aspirations of becoming a king, rather it's pretty matter of fact to him that he is king and this is what he's supposed to do. But Meruem's inherent desire to dominate isn't just limited to physically overpowering people, he also wants to mentally conquer his opponents, and he aims to do this by mastering a board game called Gungi. In his quest to beat every Gungi master, he eventually meets a small blind girl named Komugi, and to his surprise, he cannot beat her at Gungi. Meruem could just kill her, and that would technically make him the greatest Gungi player by default, but that would mean that there will forever be an opponent that he couldn't beat. And he'll never get his salty run back either. While the development of their relationship is a pretty slow burn, it's kind of obvious from the beginning that Meruem will eventually develop feelings for Komugi, and this will serve to humanize him later on. But what's not as obvious is that Meruem himself is also having an internal ideological struggle, and a bit of an identity crisis that quietly develops in the back of his mind, as he starts questioning his very nature, and realizes just how limited his worldview is. Now keep in mind, at this point it's apparent to viewers that Meruem is going through some kind of change in his mentality, but it's not exactly clear what that is. It isn't until his fight with Netero that Meruem reveals just how much he's changed. They both make their way far away from the palace in order to have their duel, and as Netero readies himself for combat, Meruem does the unthinkable. He refuses to fight Netero, because he has come to the conclusion that he does not want to exterminate humanity. He realizes that there are humans that deserve to live, and he declares that he will use his power as king to foster in a new age where all humans are equal, where there will be no more poverty, no more hunger, and, in his own words, humans will forget the concept of inequality. How fucking badass is that? It was this scene that changed my entire perspective on Meruem. He wasn't this blank slate Giga Chad anymore, no. He ascended and became this galaxy brain neo-communist. He learned that not every problem should be solved with brute force, and he tries to earn people's respect and understanding through diplomacy. This even holds true after Meruem loses his memory, when he makes a playful bet with Poof and Yuppie, whereas before he would just demand the answer from them and threaten to kill them. And this is all because he witnessed how a human can reach greatness and triumph despite all odds. Even though she was born blind, frail, and poor, Komugi was able to move past the unfortunate circumstances of her birth and find a purpose in life. This determination allowed her to become the greatest Gungi player in the world and remain undefeated even in the face of the ultimate life form. This realization prompts Meruem to defy his own natural disposition and alter his plans of world domination. He doesn't reject his purpose as king, but he does interpret it in a nuanced way. Although it is interesting to note that despite his change in attitude, Meruem never shows remorse for killing and eating thousands of people. But this is probably because he knows that this was the only way to gain enough power to be able to create his perfect world in the first place. He may have killed thousands of people now, but that would be a drop in the bucket compared to the amount of people he would have saved if his plan went through. and for all we know, Meruem could live to be thousands of years old. So not only could he create this perfect world, but he could sustain it too. Meruem's character arc has many parallels to the life of a man named Siddhartha Gautama, better known as the first Buddha. Meruem, much like Siddhartha, is born into royalty, destined to rule, and initially has a very limited view of the world. However, after witnessing the suffering in the world, both Siddhartha and Meruem begin to change their outlook on life. Siddhartha sits under a tree and meditates until he reaches nirvana, much like how Meruem plays Gungi with Komugi and eventually reaches a sort of enlightenment. Siddhartha coins the concept of the middle way, which is a lifestyle in which one must find perfect balance in all aspects of life. And Meruem's perfect world is kind of like the middle way between the way the world is now and what it would have been if Meruem just killed everyone. So all things considered, it's pretty ironic that the ability Netero uses to fight Meruem is the Guanyin Bodhisattva, which is based upon a deity in the Chinese interpretation of Buddhism. After revealing his ability, Netero begins to attack, but Meruem still refuses to fight. Seeing that he can't provoke Meruem using violence, Netero breaks out his trump card. At this point in the story, Meruem still doesn't even know his own name, so Netero offers to tell Meruem what his name is if he can beat him in a fight. And to my surprise, this actually works, but honestly, I think it would have been way cooler if Meruem rejected this offer and said something like, "I am the king, I need no name." Because it would have fallen in line with his speech about how he's not just an individual, but rather the culmination of thousands of years of Chimera ant evolution, as well as how the human ego and individuality were detrimental to the ants' connection as a colony. Now, let's take a step back to before the fight actually started. If Netero had talked to Meruem, it's likely that they could have figured out some kind of compromise. Meruem would take over as ruler of the world and work towards his vision for a perfect humanity. But that would also mean that humanity would have to give up their position at the top of the food chain. Netero is pretty much the prime example of how strong a human in the world of Hunter x Hunter can naturally be. So when mankind's champion is beaten by an even stronger force of nature, they only have one option left: to throw away their humanity and defy nature itself by basically nuking the motherfucker. For thousands of years, the Chimera ants have evolved and acted for the survival of the colony, and that eventually allowed them to create the natural marvel that is Meruem. Conversely, the evolution of humanity is mostly spurred by conflict and war within our own species. Nuclear bombs and other weapons of mass destruction are invented for the sole purpose of gaining power and leverage over other nations and people. Instead of working together to create a better humanity, we would rather find better ways of killing each other. In that sense, it isn't hard to see that we actually are far worse than the ants. But it's also the reason that we won. Looking from the outside in, this way of thinking would be reasonable, but in the end, we're humans and they're ants, so they can go fuck themselves. Now, how does Hisoka fit into all of this? Hisoka in the 2011 anime is pretty much the complete antithesis to Meruem, as an antagonist and a character. Whereas Meruem has a very straightforward approach to most things, Hisoka is conniving and deceitful. Where Meruem relies on his brute strength to physically overpower his enemies, Hisoka manipulates people and creatively utilizes his nen ability to fight. Hisoka doesn't have some kind of grand world-changing motivation. As far as we know, he just gets off to fighting strong opponents. And his motivation doesn't even change throughout the show. It may be framed in different ways depending on which role he plays in any given arc, but he's always working towards the same end goal. We see Meruem's entire life from start to finish, literally from the moment he is born to the moment he dies, so we have a really good grasp on how his motivations change throughout the story. Hisoka, on the other hand, is a complete mystery. We don't know where he's from, how powerful he is, why he's a clown, or why he's a pedophile, why he's so thirsty for little kids, why he has a desire to fight strong opponents. Hisoka might not be the most intricately written character, but my god, did this dude just steal every scene he's in. A big part of this is the production team on the 2011 anime bringing this character to life with such passion. He has so much confidence and charm, if you can call it that, and he's just so entertaining. And like, okay, Pedophilia is no joke, but I don't know, it's funny when he does it. Hisoka works as an X-Factor villain. He shows up in multiple arcs, and he's definitely a major threat to anyone who gets in his way, but he's rarely the main focus. Instead, he just does whatever and takes whichever side to fulfill his own selfish desires. Even when he's helping Gon and Killua, or when he finds a Nen exorcist for Chrollo, he's only doing it to further his own goal. And of course, you can't talk about Hisoka without mentioning the nut scene. This is Hisoka's magnum opus, and unironically one of the highlights of the show. Just look at Gon, he's freaking terrified. But thinking back on this scene, it actually made me wonder, why does Hisoka like Gon that much? Like, okay, we understand that Hisoka likes fighting strong opponents, and he, much like a few other characters, can see that Gon has this incredible potential to be extremely powerful. But at this point, Hisoka can wipe the floor with Gon if he actually gets serious. And then there's Killua, who's pretty much stronger than Gon for like 95% of the show. So why is Hisoka so obsessed with Gon, but not with Killua? Well, I think it's because Gon reminds Hisoka of himself. They both love fighting opponents that are stronger than them, and they're both willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goal. Killua is the outlier here because for most of the show, he's brainwashed by his brother Illumi to run away from opponents that he knows are stronger than him. Gon, on the other hand, actively seeks out and has the resolve to challenge strong opponents. Think about their very first encounter. Gon steals the number 44 badge from Hisoka, and just look at his expression, he can't believe it. At this point in the Hunter exam, everyone's been too scared to actually challenge Hisoka. The dude he killed right before this was only trying to defend himself, and the other dude only challenged Hisoka because he was already dying. So for Hisoka, it was a breath of fresh air for someone to actually challenge him like that. And from this encounter, Hisoka understands that Gon is willing to challenge opponents that he knows are stronger than him. But their similarities don't end there. Eventually, Gon even starts enjoying these fights. As early as Heaven's Arena, Gon shows that he's willing to get bodied as long as he gets to fight and get stronger. Again, in the York New arc, when him and Killua escape from Nobunaga, Gon is like, dang, I wanted to fight him. Like, okay, kid, like, calm down. Killua even comments on this when Kurapika is telling Gon the risks of fighting the Phantom Troop. Kurapika's like, it's gonna be hella dangerous, and Killua literally says, yeah, that's what he wants to hear. And again in the Chimera Ant arc, Kite is like, hey, do you want to help fight these fucking powerful ants that are like a B-level threat? And Gon's like, yeah, let's do it! Although you could argue that Gon just wanted to spend time with Kite, aka Stepdad number 3, but he was definitely also excited about fighting the ants. What? Gon isn't a villain, you might think. Well, yeah, obviously he isn't a villain per se, but he has clearly shown that he will do whatever it takes to realize his ambitions. Gon's sense of morality is established early on to be pretty gray. He has no problems being friends with a literal assassin who has definitely killed a lot of innocent people, but then in the scene when he's captured by the Phantom Troop, he passionately confronts Chrollo about killing innocent people with no remorse. Throughout a lot of the show, Gon seems like a pretty stand-up guy, coming in to rescue people who are in trouble and always sticking up for his friends. But when Pito kills Kite, Gon becomes emotionally vulnerable, and his morality is thrown out of whack. Don't forget that Gon was 100% prepared to literally kill an innocent blind little girl if she got in the way of his revenge. And it's not even like he's lying either. Considering the context and Gon's state of mind, he is completely serious when he says this. And that's not even the worst of it. Even before this, Gon is guilty of committing the most unholy sin known to man.
Don't say it! You can't say it, please!
What's that? Disregarding morals, hurting and manipulating other people for your own personal vendetta? Sounds like someone I know! In the world of Hunter x Hunter, those with unflinching ambitions are the ones who end up on top. Those who allow things like morals to get in the way of their goals will never be able to accomplish anything. It's only those who are willing to cast away such self-imposed shackles who are able to truly achieve greatness and actualize their dreams. But you see, once you place your own personal ambitions above things like morality, you will likely find yourself as the villain of someone else's story. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope you enjoyed. The 2011 Hunter x Hunter anime is very special to me because it was the first and pretty much only long-running shonen series to really capture me. And if you know anything about me, you know that I typically hate long-running shows, so the fact that I was able to watch and thoroughly enjoy all 148 episodes of Hunter x Hunter is really just telling of the show's quality, and I honestly still miss watching the show sometimes. So hey, maybe one day I'll go check out that 1999 Hunter x Hunter anime, and I'll definitely check out the manga as well. I just pray that Togashi finishes it within my lifetime. That being said, I just want to thank you once again for watching until the end of the video, and I'll see you on the next one.